Welcome.
We have been trained from kindergarten through high school and even college how to work for somebody else.
Presented to you by...
Some people sit through 25, 30, 40 years of a job that they hate because they don't know another way out. All right. Well, welcome to the Exodus, powered by The Difference live stream and podcast. It's great to be with you guys today. We are getting off to our second show under our new name, The Exodus. We're super excited about just the future. We're going to be having some guests on over the coming weeks, some great guests lined up, in fact. And, we want to just continue the theme about entrepreneurship, what it looks like to take that leap, come out of the corporate world to make the income that you want to make. How do you go about that? Why is it a good idea? What's the mindset you have to do that? What are some of the obstacles? And today we're going to really look at kind of a continuation from last week, diving into the mindset, diving into the what are some of the obstacles? What is it, the mind block that keeps you from really succeeding or thinking that you even deserve to succeed? What is your outlook on money? What is money really? Some of those, what seem like obvious questions, we're going to try to tackle those today using resources from people that are way smarter than us. That's one of the things you'll learn is in businesses, always steal from people smarter than you, because those people have blazed the trail and led the way, and it's okay to follow people that have had a lot of success. So we're also going to make sure that we cover what we talked about last time. We're going to share at the end kind of the story of the book, Keep Chopping Wood. We teased that a little bit at the end of last show, so we did not forget that. And I don't know if it's ever been done before, but I've got some homework for our listeners, a quick exercise that I think will help you kind of think about your situation, where you're at, where you want to be. I think it'll be really fun. So with that said, I'll bring in Lyndon Wilson, who hosts and is responsible for the Difference live stream podcast. Lyndon, good. Is it morning? Yes, it's still morning. Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing? Good to be here.
Fantastic. And also my partner in crime, the most elite athlete on the face of the planet, or so he'll tell you, my longtime friend of 27 years, Blake Timmons, with a great side profile shot of his head.
It is a good one. It looks like his screen's frozen up already.
Oh, no.
It's a still shot. So, Blake, you may have to log back in. Try it again. Can you hear us?
Well,
hello, Blake. We're going to take him out real quick and let him get that worked out.
That's fine.
And I can chat.
That's okay. So one of the things, Lyndon, that I wanted to talk about is, we've been talking really high level about why people don't go into business for themselves. We talked about the illusion of security, especially in today's environment where some of the highest paying jobs, some of the most people that felt the most secure have been let go due to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Even business owners themselves have lost revenue due to, not having patrons, not having product to sell, whatever the case, whatever they're doing. And being in a recession-proof business is something that's very important. But before you get there, you've got to make that leap, right? So one of the things that one of my big heroes is Grant Cardone. I know you like him a lot.
Right.
I was listening to him yesterday, and he was sharing some really valuable insights on, okay, so you decide that you want to go into business for yourself. Well, okay, we talked about, let's assume you figured out what you want to do. Let's figure out, kind of the direction you're going, whether it's investment, real estate, a product, a service, whatever the case may be. One of the roadblocks, I think, that either will come upon someone in the process of building their business, or will hinder them from even jumping out to begin with, is this kind of flawed concept of money, and the idea that money is evil, right? You've heard in the Bible, money is the root of all evil, which is not exactly what it says, but that's a huge,
the love of money.
Exactly. That's a huge misnomer. So you have that. You have the societal pressure of, go to college, get a job, hopefully get a good job. And we've talked in shows past that too is a bit of an illusion. And I think for some later shows, we'll dive into kind of the disaster that our college students that are graduating are stepping into. But to start us out, Lyndon, talk about the idea of money, being a bad thing. We have this mental block that says, I'm not supposed to make money. Rich people are corrupt, blah, blah, blah. You hear all this stuff about the evils of making money, etc. All shared by people that don't have any money and haven't made any money. But nevertheless, we give them a lot of our time and attention. So talk a little bit about that. Like, why do you think that's the case?
Well, I think we all have a misconception that money makes people evil, and that's not true. People are either evil or they're good, and money allows them to do more with one or the other. If you're good, you can do more good. If you're an evil person, you're probably going to do more evil. Just turn on your news and check out the politicians and see who's doing good and who's doing evil, right? So it is a misconception, but I sometimes wonder, Nathan, if it's not something that was created so that the smart people realize that if I can get everybody else not to pursue money, then I can hoard it all for myself. That's kind of the evil concept as well, right? I also think that we look at it possibly from a employee looking at it as the business owner, and we're put into a servant mode for that employer, for the owner, for the corporation, and we may have a negative viewpoint of where we stand within that company, and therefore we feel like we're being used. So the people that are gaining all this money are actually using the workers to produce that money for them. I think we got Blake in here now. So,
what's up, guys? Can you hear me?
It's a good thing you're good at sports because you suck at technology.
Yeah, I do suck at technology, which means that you don't have to be technologically sound to be successul. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Our internet is crap today. I don't know if it's cloud coverage or what, but sorry about that.
That's when you do have bad internet when cloud rolls in and it's like.
Well, it is that bad. We just got it replaced and thought we were doing
check your 56K modem, Blake. That could be what the issue is.
Yeah, whatever the crap.
You're gonna have to explain what that is to him first.
He doesn't know. Okay.
Yeah.
So we were talking about when you and I were talking about the show. I wanted to go through some questions, but the first one, as we talked about earlier, Blake, is this barrier that either the concept that money is bad, money is evil, or that I don't deserve to be successful. I don't deserve to make a lot of money. I have a good job. I'm content where I'm at. And so I think we've talked about why there's no such thing as security, right? We've talked about why it's a good idea to look at opening your own business. But even if you stay where you're at, I think there's a mindset that I have a ceiling, right? I'm only worth this much, or I don't want to get too wealthy because I could be a bad person or whatever the case may be. And what Lyndon was saying is, it really just amplifies the type of person you are, right? So in your experience, if you talk about that self-sabotage, what do you think is at the root of that issue with people?
Well, I think it's what they believe about money kind of comes out in how they make money. And what they think about money has a lot to do with the way they live their life. And I know there's a lot of Christians that believe that 1 Timothy 6:10 says money is the root of all evil, and that's not what it says. It says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And so those are two completely separate things. And so it's almost like there's like guilt involved if you make a certain amount of money, but there shouldn't be. If everybody that's evil in this world makes tons of money, the world's going to be a more evil place. If all the people that are good, which, depending on your definition of good, if all the people that want to do good for others, that want to serve others, have a lot of money, the world's going to be a better place. So how in the world is money an evil thing? And I told Nathan this story earlier. This is something that I've struggled with. And so I'm not talking down to people because, and this even goes past money, but I watched, you guys know, my father was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 3 years old. He was 30. And so I watched him suffer most of his life. It just kind of gradually got worse until he ended up dying in 2012. But when I was in 2012, I was speaking at his funeral and looking back at his life, and I realized that he had more of an impact on the world because of everything he went through with multiple sclerosis. And I believe that. But now I kind of have this epiphany, because that made me believe that it was just ready to suffer. All right, I'm just going to suffer. It's for the Lord. I'm going to suffer. And, there's all kinds of good that God can bring from suffering. But now when I look back on that, God did not give my father multiple sclerosis. Disease does not come from the Lord. So what he did was, God can take anything that the enemy meant for evil and turn it into good.
Right.
And so it just glorifies him all that much more when you're in a difficult circumstance. And despite that, he uses that as a powerful tool to impact other people. But now, when I look back and I'm kind of getting out of this self-sabotage mindset, God doesn't want disease for us. God doesn't want poverty for us. No more than all of us on this call have kids now. That no more does God want bad things for us than you want to give your kid bad things. You want to bless your son. You want to bless your daughter. You want them to have good things, and not just money. You want to bless them with knowledge and relationship with the Lord and character and all these kinds of things. But living an abundant life is something that is also wants to be given to us. Now, there's a price to pay for that, right? You do have to, quote unquote, suffer or pay the price to get to that point in your life. But this mindset that people have that they can only attain a certain amount before, that's, like you said, it's kind of the cap. They cap themselves by what they believe about money. And so if specifically somebody that is a Christian would say, how much good could I do for the world if I get more money than, and what are you doing with what you have right now? Are you illustrating that in the way you're living your life right now? If you're doing good with little, then you'll do good with more. And so you can't just wait. But yeah, I think that does, the way that a lot of people think about money puts a ceiling on the amount of success they're able to have in their career.
Yeah, and I think it's not one of these things from a Christian worldview where, okay, if you do the right things, you're going to be blessed with a lot of money. That's not how it works. That's a
yeah. You got to be careful.
I would be rich,
gospel there.
Or we'd all be poor. Lennon said he'd be rich. Basically, he's saying he says he always does the right thing, which we all know is not entirely accurate, but that's another story. So just want to be careful that we're not. This is not a prosperity thing, but it's really about influence, right? So if you look at what money really is, right? So in order to exist in society, you've got to have a way. I mean, if we take it back to the Stone Age, where you bartered, right? I would trade you a fish or you'd have cattle, I'd have fish. So I need one cattle and I'd give you 30 fish, right? Well, the problem with that is, at some point it's, what if you don't need it? What if you only need half a cow? Well, how do you trade somebody half a cow, right? So you have this system of money that comes in, and that's, it's the term I learned this, it makes me feel smart, but the fungibility of money, meaning it's in equal exchangeable pieces, right?
The what?
Fungibility.
Fungibility.
Write that
That's
down.
a real word?
It's a real word. Yep. Yeah. No joke. So the ability to exchange and have, I give you a quarter, you give me back 2 times in a nickel. That hasn't always been the case. But that interaction of commerce and exchange is how people have always interacted with each other. You have a service that I need, I have money that you need. All that continues the cycle. The issue is now, and it's still the case, is in order to interact with reality in any society, you need money, right? Most people that are poor, they need money. Why? Well, they need to eat. Well, I need money because I need to pay my bills. Well, so what if you had enough money that you could take care of all those basic needs, but then it gave you greater choices, right? Choices of where to travel, choices of where to eat, choices of who to help out, choices of which charity to go to, choices of, how long you can travel. And it's not just all about the stuff that you can get, although there's nothing wrong with that. Certainly, if you work for something, you have the right to spend it. But money ultimately comes down to choices, right? If I have $10, I'm limited on which restaurants I can go to, correct? But if I have $10 million, there's not a restaurant on earth that I can't go to. And that's just a restaurant example. But really what it comes down to is choices. So how do we get people, and any one of you guys can chime in, how do we get people to see that money is really about choices and not about what I deserve to have, what I don't deserve to have, but I can open up my influence the more money that I am able to make, obviously ethically, legally, whatever the case may be.
I think that we have that mindset, and we talked about that before. We have a mindset, and Blake used the term abundance. I think for a lot of people, you look at it sometimes as an overabundance, more than what you need. So let me give you this example. If I have the mindset of I don't want to be overabundant because that looks gluttonous, another word, so I'm going to make enough money to provide for my family and put my child through college. And I do that. I was abundant enough to provide a comfortable lifestyle and put my kid through college. But what if I made enough money to start a scholarship fund to put 100 other kids through college besides my own? I am serving the world in a better way. And I don't think we see it as that way. I think we see revenue generation as self-serving, and we've not been privy to a lot of the people that have done extremely well financially and what they do behind the scenes for other people. We all know some of the same people that work. I believe it's in Africa, helping with the water wells and different things. I mean, these people have done well for themselves, but they're giving back. But they don't run around with the sign saying, "Look what I'm doing." They just do it because
most wealthy people give money and you never know it.
That's right. That's right.
I'm skeptical of the ones that, even Jesus talks about that in the Bible, about shout their generosity on the street corner.
Yeah,
I do. I think it's okay to question their motives, but you're right. Most people, and think about this one. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but even the very nature of having a business that creates job is giving back, right? So you're giving opportunity to people. The difference is, one of the things that Blake and I are really passionate about is giving that opportunity to then have a stake or an ownership in their own business, right? So a lot of times you get, a business owner will cap the people that work for them at an employee. And that's kind of what we've been talking about in shows past. But either way, you're still providing, you're part of that integral economy of that enterprise of, what do you call it, capitalism, call it the economy, call it whatever, that is necessary for a country and economy to flourish. So
right.
It's not a charity, just the very fact that you exist on a scale where you can, be wealthy and have a business, you are by nature giving back just from your very existence because of your influence, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And let me, we talked about mindset before and just having a goal or a vision. Sometimes we talk about them not being big enough. So if I'm trying to create a business that's just going to pay my bills, right? That's all I need. I know what my monthly budget is. I just need a business that basically I created myself a job. I didn't create a business. I created a job, and we've talked about that. But what if I went into that with the mindset that the better I do, the more people I hire? Just what you were saying, Nathan, that I want to grow this business. I want to have such a big goal that I employ 10, 15, 20, 25, 100 people over the next so many years, because then we are really contributing to society in a way that we all, I think, can feel comfortable with the hard work that we're doing. And the goal is bigger than just me. It doesn't seem self-serving at that point. I really believe that a lot of people don't shoot for the stars. They don't have that big goal because they don't see it, or they see it as being self-serving and not as community service.
Well, and that gets down to why, why is that? Why do they see it as self-serving? I think if you look at the way our society is right now, it is vilified to make a lot of money. And even watch a movie, and the guy that's rich is always just pompous jerk, right? Or like it's always everyone that's rich, it's just old money that was handed down to them, which is true in some cases. But most people that are wealthy, if you look at percentages in this country right now, busted their butt to get wealthy and have blessed all kinds of people in the process. And so if news stories and things that we were seeing on a regular basis on our news feed and all the stuff that we get fed media wise on a regular basis, if those were always good stories about all the blessings and all the good things that came from someone's pursuit of wealth, because it wasn't just a pursuit of wealth, it was a pursuit of just doing, it was just a pursuit of greatness, and that wealth was just a byproduct of the person that they became in that process. And with that wealth, they're going to bless all kinds of people. And they already have all these goals in mind written down on paper of all the things they're going to do to bless all these people. That is a completely different way to think about it. And I believe if people saw it that way, and why in the world would they not do it? But you're right, Lyndon. It's self-serving in our heads for all kinds of reasons. Whether we believe it's money's evil, or whether every rich person you've ever met, you have the perception of being selfish, or all the rich people you haven't met, you've been given the perception that they are selfish and jerks. And why would I want to pursue that in that situation? So I mean, I think it's a great point.
So let me add this. Nathan, you're a history buff, right?
Yes, I'm also a buff at spilling water all over my workstation at the same time. So
I was wondering what you were doing. You were really tuned in here. So have you ever studied the railroad barons?
Not in great depth, but I'm familiar. I mean,
well, you know that Blake mentioned the word old money.
Right.
A lot of old money in our country came from because of the railroads and how they were built and how they used a lot of people. I mean, there was slave labor on the railroads. It really wasn't the most pleasant looking endeavor. But look at what the railroads did for our country, right? And how much wealth was created because there was a railroad there that allowed people to transport goods and move from place to place. And so while that person got wealthy and has old money, we continue even today to prosper because of railroads. Go ahead.
No, you just made me think of a story that has to do exactly with that. So using Texas in our history as an example. So you guys been out to the stockyards, I'm assuming?
Yep.
Yeah.
So back in the mid 1800s, the cowboys would drive the cattle up to Fort Worth. Fort Worth was kind of the last watering hole on their way to Abilene, Kansas, which is where the railroad was that would ship their cattle off to New York. They could get $6 or $7 a head, either in Fort Worth or in Abilene. But if they get to New York, it's like $35 a head of cattle. Well, so when the railroad came through Fort Worth, I believe in the late 1880s, I don't remember if it was the Union Pacific line, I don't remember which railroad it was. But that obviously cut a tremendous amount of time. All you have to do is get to Fort Worth as opposed to Abilene, Kansas. And now you're able to more quickly, more efficiently ship your cattle off to New York to get more money for them, right? So, yeah, that what you're talking about with the railroad barons, that concept, that drive, that fight, yes, done with imperfect people and probably obviously an imperfect labor system, ended up providing how many ranchers, how many cowboys more opportunity for wealth because they were able to create a system. We talk about that all the time, a system that transports their product much more quickly, much more efficiently, right? And to your point, as the railroad expands, I mean, it's like a spider across the country. Then whether it be passenger travel, now I can get across the country instead of taking a wagon and taking me 3 months and dying of dysentery on the Oregon Trail, which didn't everybody die of dysentery on the Oregon Trail when you played
Well,
that?
every time I played the game, they did.
It's always dysentery. I'm not even sure what dysentery is. It was the COVID of the day, apparently. I don't know. But
Sounds a lot worse than COVID.
apparently so. Maybe it was the Ebola of the day. I don't know. That being said, yeah, I mean, just from a public standpoint, I mean, how much less risky is it to take a train across the country than it's get my family in a wagon and truck across, having to worry about the natives, to worry about robbers, or obviously death, sickness, illness, cold, everything, and it's all because somebody had an idea. They created that idea. They made it somewhat affordable, and they expanded it. They made it duplicatable, scalable. And now, of course, same thing with the airline industry.
Right. And I think that that's what we have to look at as far as being an entrepreneur and generating revenue and creating wealth. We have to look at the opportunities we're creating for others, not just for ourselves. And I think that that's a mindset that I was never taught. I never really understood that. I always looked at kind of like what I was telling Nathan earlier, is that the big owner and the corporations were taking advantage of everybody, and corporations. We've talked about that. Do you want to work for a corporation, or do you want to create your own job? There are benefits to corporations. They create opportunities for other people that may not have them. But I want to touch on something that Nathan was saying at the beginning too, talking about COVID and different things like that. When you were talking, Nathan, about getting laid off from a corporate job because of COVID, one of the things, even some of the larger corporations, if anybody's been paying attention, when COVID happened, a lot of those corporations actually changed their business model to start producing things that had an impact in the fight against COVID. And so when you guys are talking about being an entrepreneur, when challenges happen, if I'm the owner, if I'm the boss, if I'm the shot caller, I get a chance to adapt. If I'm the employee, I don't get that chance to adapt. I may be the adaptation. Getting rid of me may be the way that owner adapts so that the business survives. Mm-hmm. Well, if I'm the owner, I know I'm not getting rid of me. Right?
Yeah.
So, but I can adapt to whatever it is and maybe find an opportunity to provide a service. That's what I love about being an entrepreneur, is that if you have an opportunistic mindset, there is always something else you can do to provide something that people need.
Well, we talk about too, it's ultimately about streams of income, right? Passive income. You may have one business. The guy that we're going to have on our show next week, really great guy, 3 businesses, always looking to open up, invest and create more, right? He just has that nature to him, right? And I think you guys will really be excited to hear from him. But going back to the corporate model, who was the My Pillow guy, right? Whatever you think of him, that's fine. But guy makes pillow sheets and towels. Well, during the COVID epidemic, he decided he totally revamped his factory to make those. I guess they made N95 masks or some type of mask that was needed.
Right.
And he had carte blanche to do that because he owns the company, right? And you saw that with, you even see it with vaccines, right? You see, like, there's 5 or 6 major companies that are making a vaccine. Well, why? Because they have the ability to do that. The owners of those companies, now some of them are public, so they're owned by the stockholder, but public or private, you have that ability to adapt to change. Now, if you don't adapt to change, we see what happens there too. But having that, I mean, we talked about security. If you want to have some semblance of security, you want the buck to stop with you, right? You want to be able to make the decision to adapt, have the opportunity to adapt, be it come to that. So the other thing that I wanted to kind of come back to, kind of where we're focused on mindset and barriers to making the transition, or maybe you made a transition, you have some ideas in mind. So we talked about money. We talked about you've got to understand what money really is. It's about choices. It's about influence. Too much, too little. There's always jerks. There's always people that are. What did you say, Blake? What was the word you used? the villains in movies are always what?
Pompous jerks.
Yeah, I know a lot of pompous jerk poor people. So
Yeah, excellent point.
that doesn't necessarily make you
They
one.
come in all shapes and sizes.
That's right. So I think another barrier, or not even too much of a barrier, is you think about, okay, well, how do we get to this point, right? And it's all about who are our influencers? Who have we learned from in our personal lives as to why we think the way we think, act the way we act, do the things we do, right? So we have been stuck learning from broke people, if you think about it, right? We've been stuck learning from people that have no business acumen, no success in terms of entrepreneurship. And, like you and I run into this a lot, with our agency where we're training agents, just the negativity people will get, and it just derails them. Oh, my uncle said I shouldn't do this. It's risky. Well, what does he do? Uh, he works. He's a delivery driver for Amazon, which again, not. But if you're a delivery driver for Amazon, you're not a business owner, right?
Well, you just screwed up us ever getting a sponsorship from Amazon right there.
I don't want a sponsor. I'm sorry, I don't want one. Anyways, but it's like anything else from a spiritual standpoint, right? What you put in when your mind comes out. Same thing with business. The people that you listen to are going to be your biggest influence. We talked about this a little bit with the college, the shift in college where you're going to college, you owe a ton of money, and you're not getting the job offers, the good job that college was supposed to promise you. And that's just one side of the coin. So either you guys jump in, Blake or Lyndon, where do you think our biggest negative influencers are coming from? And what is that shift that we have to make to start filling our minds from a business standpoint with different voices?
Go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, great question. I mean, and to your point, I mean, yeah, it's a broken model, right? It used to be pretty good advice to, hey, go to college, get good grades, work hard, get out, get a good job, and work for that big company. They're going to take care of you, right? Pensions were a real thing back then. Now it's no longer good advice. You try to do that, and you go to college, get good grades, go out and get a good job, get married pretty soon. You're going to have a whole lot of debt from college, and your job's not going to be putting a dent in that debt. And you're going to get married and have kids and have cars and have a home and spend your whole life in this cycle if you're not careful. And so a lot of the advice we get is outdated. And, God bless the people that still believe in this. I'm sure they give their advice, they give it freely, and are always eager to give it because they think that it's still true today. But, this world is always evolving, and it is nowhere near as beneficial to still follow that old model. Most people, if they're relying on some sort of retirement from job, they're going to outlive it. It's a lot of what we do is, are you dying too soon or are you living too long? And we address both those things. But yeah, I mean, you think about your circle of influence, it's just your closest friends and your family, and it's sad that a lot of times if you're looking to, and I had this experience also with my family. I'm looking to, start a business, go into business, and it's almost always, be careful. I don't know if I would do that because what have they been educated in? They've been educated on the left side of the quadrant, right? We've talked about this. You have, employee, self-employed. Move to the right side. You have business owner, investor. The whole world's been educated on how to work for themselves, not how to be a business owner. Besides the people that have figured it out and have completely transformed their lives and are financially free because they started their own business, created their own system, and got free. And that's what this show is about. It's about the Exodus, about a new way of thinking. But I think you have to be and it's not saying that, the people that you love, most of them are going to have your best interests at heart. That's not what it's about. It's, they're trying to give you the best advice possible, but what is their credentials to be able to give you that advice? And so take it and love them if they have your best interest, but go seek out people that have actually done it. And that's what's amazing about, me and Nathan's experience. We'll show people all kinds of, hey, here's all the people that have been successful doing this, that look a lot like you, came a lot from your background. Yeah, but, Uncle Joe down the street works for AutoZone. Said it's a scam. So, yeah, I'm going to pass. All right, man, go work for AutoZone. And so nothing wrong with AutoZone.
Not believing it's a combination of the education you're getting, but also belief that we have this block that I don't deserve to be successful, or my vision of success is just way down here, right? You got, these people are making tens of millions, billions of dollars. Well, either they stole it or they're way better than me, way smarter than me.
Yeah, they're not human. We're not the same. We don't live in the same dimension. I can never attain that.
But Nathan, you mentioned vision. Nathan, you mentioned vision, and that goes back to that story I told you guys, I think, when one of our first shows that we did together about the hog pen, right? And we had these wild hogs in this pen, and they kept getting out. We had a net wire fence. And my grandfather told me, he goes, build it out of solid wood, because if they can't see what's out there, they're going to be content with where they are. And I think that vision is the biggest thing that we have to have. And I tell you guys, when I moved to Dallas 30 years ago, I came from a family. I came from a community. I mean, I had aunts and uncles that had moved off to New York and to Cleveland, Ohio, and California, and they were doing so much better than a lot of my family in this small town in Arkansas. And I'm like, well, why? Why are they more capable? But when you move and you start seeing things from a different perspective, and you start seeing people with different visions, and their visions aren't limited, like maybe where you are right now in the circle that you are right now, that opens your eyes to the possibility of what you're capable of, what you can be, and what you can do. But without that, you're kind of like that hog in the wooden pen. You don't see anything outside, so this must be as good as it gets.
Yeah, it's a great point. And then if you're inside that pen, all your advice is coming from the same hogs within that pen that don't have the vision either, right? You got to talk to a hog that's made it out of the pen.
That's right. That's right.
If hogs can talk,
they can.
Yeah.
Those hogs were talking last weekend.
I think it's, and I don't know why I thought about this, but you guys have seen the Batman series with Christopher Nolan? The
what?
Batman, The Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the last one with Bane, right? With Tom Hardy, sounds like he's Theodore Roosevelt. It's really weird. There's a scene in that movie where you remember the prison that's somewhere else in the world that's this big hole in the ground, right?
Know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so sometimes that's an example of having vision, but not believing, like you see where you want to go, but not believing that you have the ability to get there, especially when you've seen other people fail, right? Remember the first guy they showed one guy try to climb out of that hole, and he gets to the top, he makes that final leap, falls, probably snaps his back, blah, blah, blah. So Batman tries it. He misses the first time, but he doesn't give up, and he figures it out. Of course, he has to give up, or the movie would be terrible. But it's interesting because that's almost worse, right? There's a little bit of ignorance is bliss if you can't see what's out there. But when you do see what's out there, then the next challenge you have to get past is, I can't get there. Wouldn't that be nice? But that's not for me. So the first thing is realizing that where you are, there's more. And then the second challenge, when you realize there's more, to telling yourself that more is attainable, right? I can climb out of the pit. I can make the jump. I can, and then if you notice, one of the things that's interesting about that I don't know if people pay attention to is when Christian Bale, Bruce Wayne, gets out of the pit, he throws the rope back down to the rest of the prisoners, right? So now he's made the jump. Now he's bringing people with him, right? when you're successful, you have the ability to bring people with you, to bring people out of the pit. Again, I understand every job. I know these are very seemingly hyperbolous metaphors, but for some people it is. I mean, some people live in paycheck to paycheck. It probably feels like a pit. So I think it's a very good analogy.
Well, I think also that when you have that real entrepreneurial mindset, and you've got to have that support group around you that remind you what you're capable of, even when you don't feel like you are, because there's going to be those days where I question my ability, where I question my faith, where I question a lot of things, and a support group can really help you through that. But one of the things that I have read, learned, and believe in is that, and it goes back to mindset. When you start an endeavor, when you start to go out on your own and pursue a goal or a dream, regardless of whatever it is, it may be to be all district in football. It may just be to be a starter in football. You've got to fall in love with the process and forget about the result. Because what will create more problems and create more failures is if you're just focused on the result. Because I can promise you that you're going to have more challenges, and there's going to be many failures all along. But the fact that you refuse to give in, Blake, you are athletically one of the most stubborn guys I've ever seen. That's why I think we got along. I wasn't a very talented athlete. I just wanted it. I wanted to figure out how to make it happen. And finding the process that you go through, and I think Blake's screen is frozen up again. He may have to log back in. But being involved in the process, falling in love with the process, being committed to the process, even when things don't go right, will change your mind. I think over time.
That's a perfect segue too, because last time we talked about the book Keep Chopping Wood, right? We talked about kind of teased it a little bit, and I told everybody we've finished kind of a synopsis of what that book is about. It's a short book, it's like 50 pages. But to sum it up, so this kid goes and spends time with his grandfather for the summer, right? And he's out there doing some work they got some land and whatnot. He's out there doing some work, and hey, come chop wood with me, right? So he goes out there. He sees that his grandfather has chopped. I mean, there's just wood for like hundreds of feet, like more wood than you would ever think you would need. So he's chopping wood, and he's looking at his granddad and says, "Why? What? Aren't we done? I mean, look at all this wood will last you a year or two. I mean, why so much wood?" And his granddad looks at him and goes, "Well, the wood that we're chopping now will be ready for next year, right? Or a little bit down the road. And you guys, if you chop wood right off the tree, it doesn't burn nearly as good as wood that's been weathered and sit out there and dried out really well, or even almost rotted in a sense. That burns a lot better, right? You guys have experienced that before. So the point is, he didn't get that because he wanted kind of a now result, right? He wanted, let's see the goal, let's get it right now. And he didn't understand that process, like you talked about, was the key to preparing for the future. Well, so this kid's a good athlete, right? And he's in high school and he goes to play football, and he is, I think he's a sophomore, but he's good enough to play in varsity, right? And, he has the ability to be a good leader. He has the ability to really step up, and his mentality, his attitude is poor. Well, why is that? Well, okay, so they get in the two-a-days, they get doing the minutia of, on an offensive line, for instance. I played offensive and defensive line. What is it about? It's about obviously knowing your assignments, your blocking, but even more granular than that is footwork, hand placement, all that. So as a skilled player, it's how you're coming in and out of your routes. You're running your routes. As a running back, it's who you're picking up on the block. Then you've got your tackling drills. Did y'all play what was the game where you circled up and you just basically beat the crap out of each other? Did y'all ever do that?
Yeah, it's not allowed anymore.
Oklahoma drill.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still do Oklahoma drill.
That's good. I like that. But all these things, the ladder rope, obviously your conditioning, the weight room, all of this stuff. He's like, "Coach, why aren't we putting in the trick plays? Why aren't we game planning for the next week? Why aren't we doing all the things, all the fun stuff, basically, all the things that you want to do the things. The reason you play football is obviously to have fun, to succeed, to win, to compete, right? Well, finally, it clicked to him that it's the little things, and you hear this, every coach will say this ad nauseum. Oh, we just didn't do the little things right. Jason Garrett used to say this, and I hated it. We got to win in all three phases of the game. We never won in any phase of the game, but that's a whole other story.
Still not.
Yeah, oh gosh, that's a whole other show. But all of these,
that's not true. They've been winning on the offensive end. They just haven't been winning on the defensive end
or the scoreboard end. That's true. But all these little things, right? That's what gave Belichick such a leg up. It's that everything was important. I mean, if something could help you get an extra yard on a play, it was important to look at. So this kid is trying to basically put the cart before the horse, right? And he thinks back to what his grandfather told him. What I'm doing now is what's going to prepare me to succeed in the future. So he totally changes his mindset. And now, like you talked about, he gets excited about the process, right? The process becomes the fuel to get him where he wants to go. And it's no longer, it's not as fun as playing a game on Friday night, but he sees the correlation, right? So then he adopts, he tells his team the story that his grandfather told him. And their mantra moving forward was every day during practice, keep chopping wood, keep chopping wood, keep chopping wood. And he changed his mentality. And as a sophomore, he became a very big leader on this team, right? So all because he saw the vision. And it's one thing to see the vision. We talked about that, like in the Batman analogy, but it's another way to see the process of getting there. And that's where I think people fail, is because they don't have a plan. They don't have attainable goals. They don't have short-term, mid-term, long-term goals. And they want to just go from A to Z and skip the rest of the alphabet, right? What do you guys think?
Well, I think that you've got to be willing to pay the dues. And part of the process, the chopping wood part, the fundamental part is where you pay those dues. It's where you become it's where you do the things that the other people weren't willing to do, that over time puts you ahead and creates, and we've all talked about sports, but it creates the consistency. The process creates habits, and the habits create consistency. And without consistency, you can never be great. You can be really good occasionally, but you can never be great until the habits become consistent.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, absolutely. Back to I don't think you actually ever said the quote. You know the actual quote from Batman, Nathan? So I'm literally standing right next to the router here to make sure I have internet. So did you say the quote? I got kicked off for a second.
I don't know that I know exactly what you're talking about, but I've seen it. I just watched the movie the other day, so I'm sure when you say it.
Well, he says that there can be no true despair without hope. And so,
yes,
and that's what you're talking about. And that's the same, think about the hog analogy that Lyndon was making earlier. If those hogs could see the vision of some promised land, but there was absolutely no way that they could ever get there, I mean, that's misery. And so they don't have to worry about that misery because they don't know that it exists. And so if you know that it exists and you can't get it, the great thing is we live in a country that misery doesn't have to exist, because you can get there. You can get to the proverbial promised land. There's nothing keeping you from getting there except yourself. But yeah, Nathan, I mean, that concept's something that I preach on a regular basis. I'm coaching football at Dallas Christian right now, and had a conversation yesterday with a kid. And so many people, all they think about is the results. And this is something where youth is wasted on the young, because it's very easier. It's easier when you're younger to only be able to think about, just the championships, and it's harder to develop that work ethic because you don't have the life experience. But, Coach Wheeler got onto him yesterday, Lyndon, and was, saying, I just don't, where's the enthusiasm? Where's the intensity? And I talked to a kid yesterday, TJ, our stud player. He's like, Coach, I just think it's a different era. I think that, we don't really, like me and this other guy, we come to play ball and we'll knock somebody out, but we're just not the hoorah type. And I just asked him, I said, TJ, what do you think enthusiasm means? And I asked him that because I know I've told him what enthusiasm means before, and he had forgotten. And he said, I don't know. And I said, it comes from the Greek. Do what?
You failed the test.
Yeah. And I said, it comes from the Greek entheos. And at that point, he remembered, he knew that I had told him before. But en meaning within, theos meaning God, God within. When you're doing something that you're passionate about, when you're doing something with everything and you got it, this enthusiasm comes out of you. And that's where the word came from. But man, it has nothing to do with being this hoorah guy. It has to do with, the efforts you put forth on every single rep, how you go from drill to drill, and how you're leading this team. They're all looking up for you. Are you getting your maximum effort on every single play? Is everything you do with a sense of urgency? Is every time we do any sort of DB drill, are you getting better on every single rep? And so champions do those things. What is the phrase escapes me? There's something is in the details. I think it's another D word.
The devil.
Devil's in the details.
The devil's in the details. That's not really what I wanted to say. I guess it still makes sense, but success is in the details. And I think that's what the devil is saying. It's just like you gotta do those tasks on a daily basis if you really want to be successful. But most people don't learn how. I think it's just something Kobe Bryant said. One of his quotes, if you just look up online, he talks about falling in love with the process. And so it's important. And if you're doing something you love, it's a lot easier to fall in love with the process. But it's no matter what you're doing, you can fall in love with excellence, that I was created for something great and I'm going to pursue excellence on a daily basis. But most people just think it's, some trophy you get presented on stage one day you can dream about, and they completely skip the little tiny day-to-day details, being excellent in all those things, because we're really just all of us, all we are at the end of our life, at the end of each year, is just the sum of the daily habits that we accomplished each day. And so when you start to think of it like that, then you got to be more passionate about, just my daily routine, knowing that that's all life really is this daily routine. We think about all these big moments. There's a lot less big moments than there are just every single day getting up and doing the process, being great at the process. And I think the more of the process you become great at, the more great moments that you'll have in your life, and all those little details that you paid attention to and all the habits that you made ends up being a much greater sum at the end of that goal.
Exactly.
So you just reminded me something, Blake, when you were talking about the enthusiasm and talking to TJ about that. And I think for young guys, it really is hard sometimes to understand the role of being a leader at that age. Some people are natural. Some people have to be developed. And I can't remember if it was Nick Saban. And I know Stephen Pine's watching this show right now, so he may be able to correct me or tell me if I'm right. But there was a college coach that I was watching him, and I'm not sure if this was not when I went to coaching clinic when Nick was at LSU. But his question was, who did you inspire today? If you ask yourself that at the end of every day, what you'll start finding out is that when you start behaving in a way that inspires people, it fuels you to do more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you think about it from a sports perspective, on the field, on the practice field, when you're going through your drills, when you're going through warm-ups, when you're going through all the things that we kind of put it in cruise control and go through, there are those younger guys or even some of the older guys that are going to be looking around, seeing who's setting the pace. Yeah. And if you're the one that's inspiring them and you realize you look over and this guy you can see, and Blake, you've seen it, Nathan, you've seen it. We've seen that guy that kind of was in the middle, in the, borderline good, not good. And all of a sudden he catches fire. He gets inspired by something or someone, and his effort increases. And all of a sudden his productivity increases, his ability increases. And that fires us up, especially when you realize that some unknown act that you did or behavior that you did or effort that you put out was the reason he became inspired. We have to have those people in our lives. We have to have people that inspire us, but we have to realize that people are watching us and we have the ability to inspire, and we have a duty to inspire, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. Enthusiasm is contagious. I always say enthusiasm is contagious. Unfortunately, so is negativity.
That's true. So if we look back on what we've kind of talked about in summation, we got about, I think, 4 minutes here. So we started out, just first step is realizing that money is not bad, right? Money is a tool. Money is it gives you choices. It gives you influence. It gives you opportunity. It gives you exactly what Lyndon just talked about, the ability to inspire, to influence people. Well, now how do you do that? Well, obviously you have to be listening to the right people. You have to be listening to people that inspire you, that teach you. You're not learning from broke people. You're not learning from unsuccessful people. You're pouring into your mind positive, successful resources, books, education, mentors, whatever the case may be. And you realize that, you have to first see the vision. You have to first know that it's out there. But then you have to find a way to make that the reality. It's one thing to see it, exactly what Blake talked about. In order to have actual hope or actual despair, there has to be some sort of hope, something out there. So if you know that it's out there, but you can't get it, well, that's where despair comes in. So how do you attain it? Well, you attain it through the process, right? The minutia, the day-to-day, the tiny goals that lead you to a larger goal, right? So you do that, you keep chopping wood, right? And so one thing I told you guys at the beginning of the show, I want to leave you with a little bit of homework, just a couple of questions. And then in the 2 minutes we have left, if you guys will just give a quick answer to the first question. The questions are, what has stopped you in the past from breaking through, from being successful? Number 2, how will hitting those goals change your life? And 3, what are you willing to do to get there? So that first question, what has stopped you guys in the past? Blake, take about 45 seconds. And as you and I have kind of gone down this journey together, what do you think personally has been your biggest deterrent or barrier that you've had to break through in order to get where we are? We have a long ways to go, obviously, but just talk about kind of that initial barrier that you broke through.
Yeah. Disclaimer: I haven't made it yet. So, but I would say a huge one would be lack of knowledge on how to attain it. Right. I lacked the vehicle to be successful. Once football was over with, had no idea about business or what to do next. And so I'm in the process of, learning how to be a part of a system that can get you to where you want to go, and enjoy sharing that with people. And then what we talked about earlier, just the belief that I'm not actually just supposed to suffer, that it's okay to want good things and to want good for your family, and to want to use those tools to bless other people. So I think just the mental barrier now that the sky is the limit on what I can attain, and the Lord actually wants to bless me with that, especially if I'm using that to glorify Him.
Lyndon?
I think for me, I would start number one with, I would say confidence, just having the confidence to pursue it, confidence in myself to pursue it. And I think the reason that I would lack in confidence is because I had not found at that particular moment in time in my life, or understood that I needed to be finding and connecting with the right examples, with the people, like Blake said, I think earlier in this show, people that's been there before, people that's walked that journey. Okay. So that they can coach me and guide me along the way. I mean, Blake's played football in high school and college, and he's able to transfer his experiences to those guys at this particular time in their life that he went through. And I think that we have to have those mentors in our life. And I didn't really understand that for a long period of time until I moved to Texas. And I got down here, and it just really hit me really quick that, wow, the world's a whole lot different than where I grew up. People pursue things in a different manner, in a different mindset. And so then I started seeking those people out. So I think that those two things for me is having the confidence. And if you don't, just find the right people that can educate you, because if you have the willingness to learn, there's people out there that are willing to teach you.
Yeah, and for me, one of those guys that I talked about earlier, Grant Cardone. I know, Lyndon, you're a huge fan of his. He talks about the 4 eyes of income, right? Or we can call it the 4 eyes of entrepreneurialism, whatever you want to call it. And I want to touch on those next week, kind of talk about those more in depth. We got a great guest for you guys lined up. But thank you guys so much for joining us today, guys. Thanks for telling a tiny bit of your story, being a little bit vulnerable. I know what's one of the goals that we want to have, Blake and I specifically, is just as we go through this journey, we may be further along the road than you, but we're learning from people that are way further down the road than us. We're trying to practice what we preach, and we want to share that journey with you along the way. So we'll see you guys right now, first and third Wednesday of every month. Hopefully we'll shift to a weekly model before too long. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, Blake and Lyndon, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right.
Thank you.
The Difference is a proud supporter of the following nonprofits. Creek and Timber Legacy, providing outdoor learning, hunting, and firearm therapy for veterans, first responders, and children with serious illness. You can find more info at creekandtimberlegacy.org. And Sharp Shoes. Through local schools and shelters, Sharp Shoes helps provide new shoes for countless needy people and their families. You can find more info at sharpshoes.org.